Hey, warrior friends, welcome to today's warrior conversation. Excited to have you joining us today. Today we'll be having Kayla, and we're going to be unpacking a big conversation, the topic of loss and grief. Hey, Kayla, I see you joining in. Hey, everybody. And as you are joining, please comment a hello. Let me know where you're joining us from. And Kayla and I will be unpacking the question together today in this warrior conversation, specifically on loss and grief. All right. Navigating infertility. How do you navigate grief and others' expectations, unmet expectations, when life doesn't unpack how you hoped that it would? All right, I see you.
Hi.
Hey, girl. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kayla. You're
Yes,
amazing.
of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you, and I see some friends from Arizona joining us. I'm so pumped. As all of you are joining this warrior conversation, please just drop a hello in the chat. Thank you, Kathy, for doing so. Let us know where you're joining us from. It's so fun because you're on the opposite side of the country. You're in Arizona right now. I'm in Florida, and I know we have people in between all over. And today we're going to dive into a pretty big, heavy topic that I'm excited to chat with you on, because you're in the process navigating this
Yeah.
like right now. And the fact that you were like, hey, Emily, let's talk about it, like humbles me to my core. And you're a gift, like truly.
Thank you.
And I have a lot of friends who are journeying through this and they don't have anybody to talk to. So before we dive in, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves for a moment. So my name's Emily, for those of you who may not know me and you're new to BecomingMe.TV. I lead, are you still with me, Kayla, by the way? I think you just froze up. Hey, everybody. If you are still able to see this live, just go ahead and comment a hello in the chat. I think we're adding Kayla back right now. Hey, Grant, glad you're here. Those of you who are joining, there you are. Perfect.
Okay, I don't know what happened.
Girl, it's that Florida Arizona connection. Sometimes there's just
that's true.
And it's gonna be good. But for those of you who are new, my name's Emily. I lead what's called BecomingMe.TV. We exist to help people become who they were made to be. We share people's stories, and we host what we're doing right now called Warrior Conversations, diving into conversations with fellow warriors, who Kayla is. So Kayla, go ahead and introduce yourself before we dive into today's topic.
Okay. I'm Kayla. I live in AZ. I love Jesus, my husband, and we have two German Shepherd dogs that we're obsessed with. I work at Generation Church in Mesa as the brand director, and I'm immersed in all things creative, and I get to work side by side with my husband, who's also in the creative department, which is super cool too. And yeah, like you said, I am smack dab in the middle of infertility journey since 2020, but more importantly, IVF journey. And yeah, it's, we're going through it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm so thankful God crossed our paths just a couple months ago. Reached out to you on a professional sense, wanting to pick your brain and learn all things communications. And literally on that first Zoom connection, I was like, we're warrior sisters at heart. Just your heart for Jesus, your joy radiates. And then to be able to know you and your story, I just was so intrigued by how you trust Jesus, because it's so true. From the opposite side of the country, I can see how much you trust in God. And so in a couple weeks, I'll put a little spoiler alert. We do have your Becoming story coming out at BecomingMe.TV, where you're going to really share your story and your journey. But for context of this warrior conversation, and we have this big overarching question of how to navigate infertility and grieve through loss, and how to trust God and take next steps when your becoming journey doesn't unpack how you hoped. Walk us through a little bit of your journey, your story, like where you're at in this becoming process right now.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, it's a lot. A lot has happened in the last 2.5, 3 years for me personally, for my spiritual growth, for my, mental health. But yeah, we had a miscarriage in 2020, and it was complete shock. Throughout that whole process, it probably took a year for me to like really get good. Um, and grief isn't linear, so it happens sometimes still, but yeah, I've just been on this healing journey personally with my husband. I've learned a lot of things through therapy, and we just did an egg retrieval for IVF last week. So we're still smack dab in the middle of this journey, but we are confident that this is the route God wants us to take. And, like I said, it took a while to get here, but I am super happy with where I'm at with God. And it's a privilege to be able to speak out about how you can get here, even when the happy ending hasn't happened yet, or, like you haven't gotten that miracle blessing yet, but it'll happen.
Yeah.
I know it's on the way.
I love your faith and your trust in God. And I would love for you to just take a couple minutes to unpack, like, for somebody who is navigating infertility or loss, because comes in many different forms when a dream doesn't unpack how you hoped it would, a relationship. What is helping you navigate loss and grief in one hand, and then also navigating with other people, right? And so you shared, like, you have had a private journey, you're journeying through this with your husband, you have family and friends, and now you're sharing this with other people too, and you're inviting them along the journey. So how are you personally navigating loss and grief? And then how do you navigate maybe unmet expectations from how other people respond to your loss and grief?
Yeah. I would say I started out like, okay, I've never been through this. Let me find a book that's like, what do you do when you have a miscarriage? I probably bought like 4 books. Honestly, never read any of them. So that's one thing. I'm like, I've never been through this. Should I just read a book? Not my personality at all. So I did not read that book. But yeah, and then I feel like throughout thinking about how I'm going to talk to you today, I've been like realizing a couple things. Like, I have been searching for such a deep connection, a relationship, a supportive, comforting, consistent relationship, whether that's through family or friends. And the only possible person that could be is God. And it took me a little bit to get there. I was like just searching for something, and I always knew God was good. I was fine with God. I wasn't like, God did this, I've always been good with God. But just recently, I'm like, my soul has been yearning for this type of relationship and deep connection, and I have only received it from God, and I will only receive it from God. So like, that's where I'm at now, and that's why I can like have peace and confidence that IVF is scary and infertility is scary, but God has been through it, and he's been holding my hand every step of the way. And it stinks that it takes you so long sometimes to like realize what you need to heal. But yeah, I don't even know if I answer your question.
No, I mean, that's incredible. Yeah.
And then the other side of that, navigating unmet expectations, that's hard too. Like, it took me a while, and like I said, I was searching for a connection, and I was looking at people in my circle, right? I was looking at friends and family, and I was always falling short. I always had high expectations that were never met because they were unrealistic. And that's just normal, expectations aren't on the other person. That was all on me. But I learned that boundaries are good for expectations, and also just realizing that no one is going to help heal my heart the way that God is going to. But yeah, I went through a lot of trial and error, I guess I would say, through communicating. And yeah, I think throughout that whole process, I was in therapy. I was still going to church. Even though I work there, I was still attending, I was still worshiping, I was still, you know, trying to put myself in the best atmosphere possible. And I also set boundaries. So, you know, we don't have control over what other people think or say, what they're going to ask, how they're going to react. And yeah, I learned that unless I'm vocally saying like, hey, this is what I need. Can you call me at 5 p.m. every night, or bring me dinner on Tuesday night? I like pasta. You know, unless I'm like being that detailed, which would have never happened at that time. Yeah, the expectations is just never going to happen, you know?
That's so wise what you shared. And it sounds like, Kayla, like you knew God, you were good with God, like you talked about, but it almost sounds like in the midst of your grief, excuse me, you really discovered God and like this new love and dependence on God, and that he's the one who really meets your need. And then from there, you were able to create these healthy boundaries with people and yourself. Like you stayed connected in your church community. You looked at the expectations that you maybe had for other people and identified in such a mature way. Unless I tell you, I want you to bring me pasta on Tuesday night, people aren't going to read our brains, you know, and having that level of just openness and what you want to be sharing with other people. So it's just what you've unpacked is just so incredibly wise and mature. And I'm curious, like if somebody was watching this warrior conversation and they're walking through their own chapter or season of grief, grieving a dream that has not unpacked how they wanted it to, how they've prayed, how they've begged God for clarity on, what are some next steps that they could take? Like, how can we get to this place where we have the same joy on our face that I see in you today, where you're like, I love God, I'm dependent on God, and I see that radiating from you. Like, how can we experience that too in our own loss?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. It's first thing I think recognizing is grief is not linear. You know, it comes in waves. It's unique to everyone, and just because someone else experienced it a different way doesn't mean you're going to experience it the same way. And just for people who are maybe going through grief or loss and like don't know where to start, I would say just cry. First order of business, just cry, just do it. It can be an angry cry, it can be a sad cry, but having so much pent up emotion, you don't know what to do with, you don't know who to be angry at, you're upset, you're confused, just let it out. I'm a private person. I'm definitely not extrovert, and I definitely do not cry in front of people. So, you know, like driving at night to my husband, but I think there's something powerful about allowing yourself to feel your feelings, and it's so much more healing to be like, to recognize, yeah, this sucks, I'm gonna cry about it, and then I'm gonna work through it. Something we also did is we honored our baby. We, you know, who knows? This was the first time this ever happened to us. We only knew of one miscarriage in our close circle, and even handling that wasn't great on, you know, the outside. So we were still brand new to the thought that this ever was a possibility. So we, you know, took some time to think about what we would want to do. Do we want to plant a tree? Do we want to, you know, write a letter, do a balloon or something like that? But we just named her and we prayed to her and we thank God for her. And yeah, it's special to us. I have like pieces of jewelry that have a little poppy flower on it. And that's just, you know, something that helps me helps remind myself of the pure joy that I had for those couple weeks that I was pregnant. And just, yeah, it was just pure joy. And I love thinking back to how I felt. And it's no longer like a bad memory or, you know, something that I'm just longing for, and wishing that it would have gone a different way. And yeah, communication is key. Like I said before, like I learned a lot about how to communicate through trial and error. Still not perfect at it, but through communication and through the trial and error, through the boundaries, I was able to figure out what I needed for myself, and then just disperse it through my whole life, basically. Um, yeah, and it's okay through the boundaries conversation. It's okay to say no. You don't have to show up to the family picnic or the holiday or the baby shower or whatever it may be. Just say no. I used that boundary very heavily in my life. I still use it if I need it. And I feel complete peace about every decision that I've made. If I missed out on something, it was always just like, I have to put myself first. I've never put myself first. And we're just going to go to like health boot camp right now because I'm, diving deeper. I'm learning how to communicate. I'm learning how to work through my emotions. And I had to set boundaries to myself, even though I was, scared of letting someone down or worried about if someone's feelings would get hurt, so that was hard, but I'm a big advocate on boundaries now. I've learned a lot, and they don't have to be permanent. They can be temporary, but they're for you. Like, they're so important for you. This is just my boundary, my experience, and that's that. But yeah, loss is crazy, and unless you've gone through it, it's really hard to relate. It's hard to know what to say. It's hard to know what to do. But yeah, there is the light at the end of the tunnel always. Even if your tunnel is 2 months long or 13 years long, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I would say if it is like 13 years long, like maybe let's seek out some professional help, which is great. I'm also an advocate for therapy because I would not be where I am today without God, my husband, and my therapist. Those are like my MySpace top 3 right now.
Oh, so like, thank you for sharing what has helped you. It is so encouraging and empowering for all of us on our becoming journey. And I couldn't agree more with you on just cry, like let out the emotions, because one of the things I've been working through with my coach, 100% agree, like talk to a counselor, a therapist, a coach. And I advocate too. I am a Christ follower. I know Kayla, you are as well. Like, my coach is a Christ follower, and so she's constantly pointing me back to Jesus. And one of the themes she's coaching me through right now is what it means to be a warrior who weeps, because often we can think, well, to be strong, I'm not going to weep or I'm not going to cry, and that's not true. A warrior processes their emotions, and that comes with feeling them and holding space for them and yourself, and grieving. And that's okay. That's not a sign of weakness. It's actually, I am learning and seeing one of the strongest things you can do. Like, the strongest thing that we can do is cry, process our emotions, and then grow and heal through them. Like the health boot camp you just walked us through, which is health boot camp with Kayla. Like, let's go.
Yes, we'll do everything health-wise, but work out.
Yes, all of our mind and our emotions, and but literally what you outlined is amazing for growth and just being the healthiest, best versions of ourselves. And that's how we can process what in our life is not unpacking how we hoped or wanted it to. So thank you for walking us through that. Is there anything else that you would want to share to somebody as we're coming to a close on this warrior conversation?
Yeah, I would say, if you know someone who has gone through loss, is going through loss, or happens to go through loss in the future, I would just encourage you to be vulnerable, be uncomfortable. The person grieving is never going to be the one to open the door for you. You have to bang it down. And yeah, I wish I would have been set up better to just be like, I just need you to stop asking me questions, but you can come over and cry with me. Or just drop the dinner off. I don't want to see anyone. But, you know, when you're in it, you're so tunnel vision, you're heartbroken, you don't know what to do, you're confused if it's like a medical thing, or, you know, the days blur together, nothing makes sense. So I would just encourage anyone, just be vulnerable. It's so easy to just say, I'm so sorry. That sucks. I'm here for you. Give them a hug. That's all. It doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to be like a well-written speech. Just letting someone know that you see them, you recognize how hard this is, and that you're there no matter what. Yeah, it's, you know, grief is weird, and unfortunately, miscarriage is very common, but it's not as talked about. Infertility as well. But so many people go through infertility and go through miscarriage, and it's astounding the numbers and how common it is. And, you know, if you don't know someone, you probably know of someone who's just not sharing their story. And, you know, it's individual. If they don't want to share, that's okay. But just, yeah, I would just encourage people to be vulnerable. Maybe think before you ask someone if they're going to have kids yet, or, you know, if you see someone and maybe they gained a little weight, don't ask them if they're pregnant, that type of stuff, you know, like, let's just, you know, have grace and space for everyone. And, you know, everyone is going through a silent journey, and it sucks sometimes. So let's not put each other through some awkward situations. I can't tell you how many times, you know, just the questions of, you guys are next, right? And you're just like, we're trying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you. That's so tangible. Thank you for sharing that, truly. But also thank you for risking being vulnerable in this conversation and sharing with a bunch of people that you don't even know your story and your journey. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. That's not lost on me. And for you to say yes to doing an Instagram live with me and talk about this journey, and then to film your story and invite other people. And even before this, like on your own Instagram, you and your husband inviting people into your story, and you've been posting updates and your photos and videos and the whole, just the journey. I think it's beautiful, and it's not being talked about. And I have so many friends who are journeying through, Kayla, what you are journeying through, and they don't know how to talk about it. And so you sharing your voice and your experience and the messy grief and hope that we have, it's beautiful, and it's helping a lot of people. It's encouraging a lot of people, and I thank you. Like, it's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to maybe have clear thoughts on the Becoming story.
Oh, this was clear. Like, you
I was
laid
like,
out, you laid out the best workout plan ever. Like, I cannot wait to rewatch this warrior conversation and make like my notes. Okay, cry the tears, ugly cry, pretty cry, whatever. Cry the tears. Go to therapy. Read my Bible. Stay in community. Have boundaries. Like, you laid out some tangible, beautiful steps for all of us. And I just, I'm seeing what she said in the comments. Exactly. So, and all of you who are tuning us live during this warrior conversation, thanks for joining the conversation. If you're not already, please go follow Kayla. Like I kind of mentioned a moment ago, you're sharing reels and stories of your journey. And so just, you can follow along and keep encouraging Kayla on Instagram. And if you're listening to this episode later, you can find how to follow Kayla in the show notes. We'll link that there easily for you to connect with Kayla and her journey. So, Kayla, you're amazing. Like, thank you, warrior friend. I love you, girl.
So much, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And stay tuned for Kayla's Becoming story coming to BecomingMe.tv soon. See y'all. Have a good night.
See you.